my experiment, and I am going to tell you about this. And here is a beautiful, ta-da! Why did the Vikings invade Britain? Why did USA drop bombs on Iran? Why do Israel kill the Palestinians? And we can go on and on and on for thousands of years. And here we have why. It starts out with the Viking raids and subsequent settlements define the period known as the Viking Age in Britain. Actually, I was seeing a film also, which I will come back to tomorrow. But that film said that all this actually started not in 793, but several hundred years before. Actually from like the 6th century, 500 and something to 1100 and something, which is 6 to 11, it's 500 years. And that 500 years, by the way, is the same time span that we had the colonialism with, you know, England being the master of the universe and all that kind of thing, which they are definitely not anymore. Anyway, so the raid started in June 793 when 3 ships approached the shore by the Abbey of Lindisfarne off the northeast coast of England. The Abbey believed they were Norse traders, Traders, and thinking they had lost their way, went out to direct them up the coast to the estate he thought they had been aiming for. And what happened was they were not traders. They were Vikings out to loot, and they killed him. And then they murdered everyone they found on the island. Oh my God. Now, but why did the Vikings first come to the British shores? Why did they do it? What was it about their homeland that made them want to leave and risk crossing potential deadly water? And why did some of them eventually decide to stay over there in England? So the Anglo-Saxon England was very wealthy. Here you go. So it says here, the clearest cause for the Viking raids were simply the acquisition of wealth. Acquisition of wealth rings a bell. And the Scandinavians were aware of this through their own commerce with the region. So it means they traded and then they killed. Then they went to war. First they traded and then they raided. Wasn't that what the colonialists did in Africa? First and in India and in China and in Japan. First they traded and then they raided. Something doesn't change. So what lured the Vikings was the wealth, and especially something they could take away, like gold, silver, and this kind of things. And that is where, of course, the churches and the abbeys were perfect. But what they also discovered was, when they were there, that it was not just that they could, rob, kill, etc., etc., but there was actually a lot of land that they could, agricultural land that they could develop. So they went back to Norway, Denmark, and came back with their families and settled. And then they collected a big army. They wanted to do more. That was 865, and it was called the Great Heathen Army, because Norway and Denmark at that time were not Christian, and England was. So we Danes were the heathens. So there were other reasons that actually the Vikings were, fighting, going to war and all that. They were heathen, and their god was Odin, and he was a god of war. And in that religion, when you did really well and you were brave and loyal, and you were winning, you would go to Valhalla, and there would be many virgins, and you would eat and drink and have a nice time. So rings a bell. So that actually encourages the Vikings to be brave and to fight without any fear and go for the win, for conquering. Odin was a god of war, battle, military victory, but also presided over thought, reason, poetry, song, and logic. Well, I didn't know that. So, now in 1008, we had the Danish Knut, or Canute. We call him Knut, King Knut. You can't say that if you're not Danish. So he was proclaimed King of Denmark and united with Britain under his rule. Before then, he had claimed the thrones of Norway and Sweden, so he was like, yay! There's also the video. I watched it this morning, but I'll watch it again, and then that will be for tomorrow, because that one has, it spreads out, not England, only England, but takes the history of the whole of Europe, Northern Europe, England, France, Russia, the Baltic, and actually what actually happened in all these places, and where the Vikings went, and what they did. So that would be for tomorrow. That's very exciting. Okay, so for now, bye-bye.